So I also have to apologize because I've been thanking everybody but the venue that is currently hosting us. So would really like to say thank you to the NTN, really for hosting us for 2 days, from the morning till 5 o'clock. So these are the kind of partnerships and, relationships that we really need to foster within the industry, which is collaboration and aiding each other, especially when it comes to...
Yes, since we're in that, appreciative mood, thanking people for their support and stuff, I think somebody that also needs to be highlighted in this particular case is 17 Media. You did mention him, but I also think it's a good opportunity that maybe Madge. Madge. If you could just join me here, I think Madge has some exciting news, I think, for the industry. Maybe if you can just give an intro as to what you are willing to do. Okay, just hold on, guys.
Yes, so basically, I know that there are a lot of people who are in the industry who may not be able to afford to pay the membership fee for becoming a member of FAN. So I know there are a lot of people here that I've seen that do come, but they're not official members. So I decided I will sponsor some memberships. So for those who are here that would like to become members, I basically donated some memberships, and I'm not in control of who the members will be, but you can speak to the relevant people, I guess, and yeah, speak to Yalo, and you can become a member.
Once again, thank you very much, Madge. I also have to say and like highlight this particular fact. The fact that we actually been live streaming for the past few days, we'll also live stream tomorrow. All courtesy of Madge and 17 Media. But the reality is I called him Thursday morning at 7 o'clock. He was set up and ready here at, at 8:30. So yeah, we do appreciate those things. Thank you very much.
This is not the latest version, but this is the original version. So I just wanted to give also just a background to especially the new people who are new to the concept and who have not been FAN members, to basically give an overview of what the NCCP is. I know I did that a bit earlier on, but the NCCP basically represents a timely strategic investment poised to generate immediate economic activity, create jobs, and develop skills and amplify Namibian stories, and invigorate the creative economy. So I will not go through the entire document, but just to give an overview of how it happened, this was obviously this was basically birthed from the needs that came about after we did a bit of research through FAN, and then we produced what we called a position paper or / industry assessment paper, which basically reflects the needs and what the people that we did do the research with, what they felt were their needs. So the critical challenges included severe funding constraints with large gaps between needs and available public funds, a significant lack of skilled professionals, coupled with inadequate training opportunities, which is obviously a barrier for the youth that are incoming, and insufficient infrastructure like equipment and post-production facilities, and restrictive regulations deterring filmmakers, and a limited market or access to market for Namibian content. So who are the off-takers, who's buying the content, and who's distributing the content? So we thought then, okay, what are the benchmarks that we can use as well to establish a program that would be suitable for a market that's ours. Obviously, South Africa is always a good benchmark for us because not that our economies are the same, but we've always benchmarked on South Africa with a lot of the other industries as well, or for the other industries as well. But another country was also Morocco, especially Morocco in terms of leveraging infrastructure and incentives and the critical role of tax rebates and co-production funds and the importance of training programs. And then also the industry position paper emphasized the urgent need for Namibia to adopt similar strategies. So let's identify the challenges. So particularly through policy reform, increase investment in training and infrastructure, and establish effective funding mechanisms like incentives, but also triple P programs, which are your public-private partnerships. So these are now partnerships between the private sector and the government. So through this program, we're hoping to unlock development, to unlock skills development, access funding, produce and distribute work, and also tell authentic Namibian stories. So basically, this is a structured approach to tackle these issues, aiming to create thousands of jobs, because that's what we know. Government's biggest priority right now is to say, how do we create a maximum number of jobs in a sustainable way while still training people? And also the time is also very important, because we all know the government has got budgets, and budgets need to be used within a certain time frame so that they don't return to the coffers of government. Otherwise, they'll say that, oh, you guys must don't need the money because you guys are not using the money. So the initial target was the 50 million that you see there in the second paragraph. So government announced that there will be 50 million towards the creative industry, and they wanted to use this 50 million to grow the creative industry. But I think the 50, it was actually, I think it was even more than that, because we knew that, we thought that the 50 million was supposed to actually be for film. And then there was another budget for the rest of the creative sector as well that was going to be dispersed through the Creative Council. Yeah? Okay. Okay. So based on that, and based on the objectives that we wanted to then to tackle, which is basically this part, we had then come up with certain components. All right. So the first objective was to stimulate the production of diverse, high-quality Namibian film and television content. I think that's quite clear. And then we wanted to create significant employment and skills development opportunities within the creative industry. So how do we create a certain project that allows people not only to be employed, but also a program that tackles the training element and skills development part of the objectives. And then also support regional inclusion, because a lot of people within the country, creators within the country, feel that projects are not decentralized. They focus on Windhoek primarily, and sometimes even the coast. So how do we make it a bit more inclusive for the various 14 regions? And then also we wanted to enhance the capacity of local content creators through funding and resource access, which is now the funders being the government. And then we also wanted to develop a national broadcast and digital distribution channel, market access for Namibia. So this would then require agreements with broadcasters such as the NBC and One Africa Television. And then also lastly, establish foundational infrastructure equipment to support ongoing production needs. So within the contents or the components that I'll be showing you now, there is also an element for part of the funding to purchase equipment through these funds that we are getting, so that at least filmmakers do have access to equipment to produce the content that is required. Are there any questions in regards to one of these objectives? All right. Yes, Sam. The mic is here.
I just want to speak to the second one, which is create significant employment and skills development. I think part of the challenge in why the creative industry can't sell the case to the government is the government uses generally two indicators, which is employment or contribution to GDP. All right, and I think in terms of making a case for the film industry, that needs to be incorporated somewhere, particularly because if you have a production company, you're not necessarily trying to employ people. You're trying to make sure that your cast, your crew generate income, right? So we had, was it Band from the coast, that he says, for instance, they had a Mercedes series, they made or they spent $24 million on cost, on crew, but they didn't necessarily give them long-term employment. So for government, it looks like an industry is not making a change to people's lives because you're just looking at employment figures. So if all the production companies just give the employment figures, it'll still be low. But if you look at the income that's generated, it'll be very high. So I think finding a way to include, I don't know where, the issue around income generation and contribution to GDP, maybe support a regional inclusion by commissioning content from 14 regions to increase the GDP of films' contribution to the sector. But I think in the objectives, you have to be able to speak government language, and that's the language. It is employment, income generation, and contribution to GDP.
Absolutely. And that is basically what we're trying to tackle through this program, right? So one of the conundrums that we've now come across is that the NCCP budget was decreased. So if you look at the components here, the first one is to produce a national soap opera, a national soapy, right? Soapy would be a generation, something that is the whole country watches and it lasts over a longer period of time. Then you've got limited television series, maybe one that has very few episodes and also doesn't necessarily, carry into the following year. And then we've got the regional short film productions, which was capped at 5 million at the time. And these would be now 14 short films from the 14 regions for an X amount. Yeah, short films, basically 26 minutes long minimum. And these would then be broadcasted on online platforms or also through the broadcasters locally. Component 4 had access, and this was at this point, we basically removed the feature films at this point as well because the budget was just not as large anymore, and we wanted to obviously have maximum impact and speak to the national goals at the same time. So the fourth component spoke to equipment access and management program. So there was also going to be a budget that was going to be allocated there. So the NFC would appoint, via competitive bidding, one or more equipment operators that would be responsible for managing, maintaining, and hiring out equipment at a subsidized rate for whoever is shooting one of these content parts. So that would also speak to sustainability as well. And then the other part was now the administration of it. So somebody would now, or an organization would be employed to ensure effective management, oversee the program, and also promote the NCCP. And as well as, what is the part that I'm looking for? Yes, to monitor and evaluate and market activities related to the program. So that was also obviously very key as well. So for example, you'd have what are now the multi-choice programs that were being managed by the collective. So MultiChoice had employed an organization that would help manage those projects and oversee them and evaluate. And the collective was doing this on behalf of MultiChoice. Is it Mukoro? Umbura. It was for the Umbura projects, yes. So that was the thinking behind it. So right now, we have been told that currently there's only, instead of the 100 million, instead of the 50 million, there's currently only 17.5 million. And what we then proposed through the people that have been consulting over the past 2 years with the NFC, we then proposed to them that, perhaps maybe one could consider then doing one national SOPI, perhaps, and then four limited television, where is that pointer? Yeah. So here we would then perhaps do 4 limited television products, or productions, and then when it comes to the regional shorts, we perhaps keep it there as well, keep it at 14, but maybe the budget then should probably be decreased. Instead of the 5 million, maybe see what amount that would be. So even with the limited television series as well, depending on what NBC is willing to take the content for, it would obviously also depend on what that budget allocation would be. And then similar as well for the equipment as well. So everything obviously becomes minimized. So it's no longer 15 million or the 5 million. Everything goes down because the budgets have gone down exponentially. So what we're trying to do today is to now establish if the current structure that we are proposing is the right one, because that's currently what's been tabled, that's what's been proposed, and the MOU that is going to be signed is currently or has the current structure. So I know that there were some comments and some suggestions from yesterday. So that is what we are now here for, to establish what the thinking or the thoughts are. So I would now like to throw it to the room and to the online audiences and let us know. But with that also, as you are giving your comments as well, please think about the objectives and also think about the sustainability element of it, right? Because I know that there was one of the pushbacks that we got from our members was that why did we not include feature films and why did we not include documentaries? All right, so for feature films, obviously, we've been explaining that feature films might exclude a lot of people, and obviously now that kind of like makes this like a more of a grassroots program. So more of a beginner, younger, less experienced filmmakers to come together and to produce this content, as opposed to perhaps the veterans of the industry and people who have produced larger films who may not be able to, perhaps benefit from this. And perhaps once the program shows a bit more sustainability, then next year you can go back to government and say, this is how we've used this money. This was the return. This was the impact of the current project that you gave us. This is how many people that we managed to employ through this program. So can you now please give us more money so that perhaps we can also start creating or producing content that can travel and that can perhaps be a bit more globally competitive, right? So that was the thinking behind it. And also, if you look at the NFC callouts right now for feature films, NFC has requested for one requirement that was not always there, which is the distribution part of it. And also one thing that we must remember is that NFC's mandate is to obviously, support the industry, whether it's through training or through funding some of these programs or at least productions. With government, they want to obviously see more impact. With NFC, it's that's their mandate. But with government, if we are saying that we're going to use taxpayers' money and resources, we need to also account for that, right? So which sometimes becomes a little bit tricky with films, because if you now incorporate a feature film in this model and you cannot guarantee distribution, it might obviously be a bit tricky, unless if somebody can, obviously, from the onset, when they apply for the funding for the feature film, and say that, listen, I'm going to apply for this feature film because my distributor has agreed to commission this project or to buy this production at X amount. Then obviously that changes like a little bit. But if we now go back to government and say that, no, listen, apart from the soapies and the whatnot, that we managed to have NBC buy from us, so that that money that we are getting from NBC in these coming 3 years comes back to us, goes into a separate fund, and then afterwards the rights go back to the producer or the owner of that content. Then they can exploit it further on other platforms, right? But for us, it was to create that sustainability whereby NBC, whereby we pay. So in simple terms, the producer applies, you pay for all of your costs. You pay for your actors, you pay for your equipment, you pay for your locations, etc. You pay for your producer. The producer gets a salary for that period amount of time. And after that, you cannot then say to NBC that NBC must also give you royalties, or even like sort of like a more payment or commissioning fee, right? Because that commissioning fee needs to come back to the fund. You are just given funding to produce it and take care of your costs, right? Then NBC retains those rights for 3 years. And within that period, the producer is not able to exploit it, right? I think with Ombura, the producer just doesn't get the rights, right? But MultiChoice owns it. So in this situation, the government owns it for 3 years. After the 3 years, you are able to further exploit it on other platforms. So the rights come back to the producer. So that's one of the key difference. So that's just what I want you guys to keep in mind, or everything that I've said now, when we are making these comments, to have that in the back of your mind. But now I will throw it back to the room and I'll open up to comments. And I think Florian was the first one.
Hi, thank you. Could you present the current structure? Because of course now we're looking at the 50 million and 6 series, etc. But it would be really interesting to see what the plan is to spend the 17.5. I'm sure you have it somewhere.
We do have it somewhere, but we must remember that now it's no longer a fan document. It has now become a government document. So, and if government is saying that this is funding for the entire industry, it would almost be unfair to now make that information available to only the people that are in the room or on the live stream platforms. It becomes very sensitive because remember, government has now said that this is their project. This was a proposal from FAN. So if we now start going back to the minutes and how much is going to what, how much is going to what, those are our internal budgets.
I think the bottom line is we understood that this afternoon session is for our input into the current plan.
Yes.
Right? And in order to give input, we would have to see what the plan now is. But in the in the absence of that, I mean, there are some aspects. So obviously you're not going to go and do now 222 episodes anymore, right?
No.
So it's that kind of stuff or 220 episodes at 22 minutes each. That doesn't quite. Yeah.
Okay. So do we want to change the?
Yeah.
We do have, but I just explained it now. That I don't know. Maybe it is because government is funding this plan. They've adopted it as their own. So I'm not so sure, but I stand under correction.
It will also be on a public platform, right? It'll be on YouTube.
But government
so-
hasn't announced it yet, because the MOU hasn't been signed.
So we can't provide input.
You can, because
But in
like-
order to do that, we need to see it.
We were asked by Florence yesterday. No, but Florence asked us to make inputs, right? And the basis of this is, I think what we need to understand here is, number one, I think sometimes we make this distinction of like, what is government? Government is all of us. We have access to the same government as anybody else. What we are asking here is, we were supposed to make input to the plan because the Film Commission asked us to make input and forward it to them in terms of what we think as members and as industry that what we should be considered in the NCCP. And the NFC agreed to it. And I thought we were on the same page yesterday, that we will come here instead of individually us emailing the Film Commission.
But how would you have emailed her? Based on what as well? What were those inputs going to be based off of? Because if you did not have the plan.
Sorry, just to include from our conversations from yesterday, of course, where we kind of agreed where the information gap was between the board and the membership was because that plan that you showed us now was shared with the fan membership, so we all were able to see it and were able to see like, okay, like the allocation is 15 million for a national SOPI, 10 million for 6 series, 5 million for the 14 short films, etc., etc. And of course, where the information gap, I think, between the board and the membership is what did the downsizing do? What was taken out of the plan? Were projects cut? So of course we would need to know as the membership what is the current plan, how much money should go into the SOPI, how many series are being developed, because then we can, if we have that information, of course, then we can make suggestions on saying, okay, why don't we do, instead of 4 series, 2 series, and then put the other money into documentaries or feature films? What's the pros and cons of that? Of course, we said we can discuss in the room, but right now we don't have the information, so it's really difficult to give input on what could be cut if we don't know, because this program now is like it's less than half the money that you just presented now to us. So of course now for us it's really difficult to make suggestions because we do not know, we're not on the same level now, and so that's where we don't have the information needed in order to give substantive input.
Okay, I hear you. So what you want us to do is then to say how much is going to the national SOPI, how much is going to the television production, to the limited TV productions, how much is going to the regional short films, and how much is going into equipment, and how much is going to administration of the program. So you want us to list and break down those distributions, and then afterwards you guys would then say, okay, instead of giving equipment 20%, give equipment 10%. And let's rather use the other 10% for documentaries. Yeah?
Okay. Can I just help? I think from what you put there already, there's the amounts from the 50 million, right? So now we want to know what is the adjustments to the 7.5 million. So if we look at the overall budget, 15% has remaining. So 85% of the cost is gone. So let's assume that from those budget lines, just by BM mathematics, that only 15% of that allocation will still be there. Now that's what I'm saying. So, but now from the amount perspective, and then you can then say, then you can easily correlate. Remember in math, when you have the one missing number, if one and one, then you can easily say how many series does that come out? Because you're saying for 5 million, we had 22. Now that you have reduced it to 15% of the 5 million, which will be whatever 1 point whatever million, then you'll just see the variation difference. Then we can have, I'm just giving them an idea in terms of how to benchmark, because I think that's part of the discussion that we need to have. Does that amount make sense for that many series? So we can do that currently is what I'm suggesting based on the figures that are given. So we don't have to wait for them to do it, we can do it together. We can just get that list back and calculate quickly and say, is it around 15%? Because it's estimates, all of it, right?
Maybe you were still on what Patrick said. No, I mean, one point we had yesterday was like the timeline. You know, this money, from what we know, is supposed to be fully spent by March 2027, and that's when the final delivery is also supposed to be in, which is not possible. It's actually going to cause more damage than anything else. And for us to really give constructive feedback and help you have an impactful content creation plan, we actually need to know, yeah, okay, so the SOAPy is now down to 100 episodes, and this is the amount that's assigned to it. 12 months turnaround time for the series. We have 6 episodes, maybe not 22 minutes, because that's a strange broadcast format, maybe more like 24 minutes or 45 minutes, whatever it is. But literally that we can kind of sort of see this is what the 17.5 million will be spent on, 10% administration fee, all standard stuff, you know. But if we now don't provide this input, what's going to happen is it's going to be signed, the MOU, and then those outputs are expected, isn't it? And then our hands are tied. So we actually, at this juncture, have to hopefully be able to provide input so that what is agreed upon between the different ministries actually is doable within our industry.
Right. No, I'm with you. I'm with you on that page. That's why I'm saying I'm opening up to the room. And also, Byron is now also calling Florence just to confirm. So, and I hear you, but when you say that who's government, we are government. I hear you on that, right? And we also have to be able to advise our leaders, right? But then also, there's also a sensitive part to it when a small group of people are deciding on what needs to be done and now has got information that other people don't have access to. Especially in terms of when we say like equipment. If we're saying that we are going to bid, we're going to tender, it's going to go on a public platform to say that the equipment company is going to bid for this. But now one of us here is a supplier, and now they've got the information already beforehand, before it goes on tender. That's what I'm saying, the sensitivity around it.
Yeah, and I think you know, you guys are making this conversation even more confusing. Yesterday, Errol stood up and said, "I'm an experienced filmmaker who have done TV series before. If you leave it to grassroots, we don't understand how you're going to get those numbers." And then Byron said it makes sense that the experience and the experts transfer the skills. The reason why we are here is to give input to the plan so that we can take ownership of the plan. We will. Sorry?
I'm not disputing what you guys are suggesting and requesting. So that's why I asked for guidance, because now, like I said, it's now a government project, right? So I'm scared as to what should I be revealing, what should I not be revealing.
Okay.
So let me just hear from Byron, because he asked Ms. Florence. I just don't want to overstep and do things unprofessionally.
No, I think the records are there. I think when everybody goes back to YouTube from yesterday, we can also see what the Film Commission said with respect to the opportunity to give input. And remember, like, you know, because it's government, everything can be reviewed, no? So just take our notes, and then we'll take it from there.
All right. So we got to go ahead from NFC, and we can share the numbers, or at least the components with the budgets.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, it will. Oh, but while I'm looking for the document, what were you going to make the comments with? The inputs. What were you going to send the inputs with if you did not have this?
Sorry?
What were you going to do the inputs with if you do not have this document?
Which? No, if you don't have it, you don't have it.
No. I'm just asking, how were you going to send your inputs? As per mail, as Ms. Florence instructed.
I mean, one of the inputs was literally that you have to ensure that it sticks to a 12-month timeline, right? And not is now forced into 5 months, right? That's definitely one of them.
Yeah, and the second thing is, I keep saying that if the Film Commission is suggesting that they're having difficulties getting applications from other regions, and we go do 4 drama series. From my experience, I know that these drama series are probably going to be in Windhoek because we don't have crew. I would put as input to bring some of the feature films back into the NCCP because then we can market the country, then we can...
Are you guaranteed sales for that movie?
Well, I would say the same thing about drama series, but yes, I think that if NBC can accept drama series, they can also accept the feature films.
We both know that conversation with NBC is tricky, especially when it comes to high-end productions.
High-end productions, we're talking about films.
Because if you're saying that you're going to sell to NBC a film that's going to travel and that's going to be commercially viable internationally, then you're saying that NBC should be able to afford it. But we know that NBC is not commissioning or buying such content because they don't have the budgets for that. So when you're going to produce a feature film that is 8 million...
I mean, I don't know where the conversation is coming from. I think that, there are films that are making profits. I mean, it's just a matter of like asking, let's say, the white line that is sold, elsewhere, and there are examples of films that have made something, or let's say documentaries that have traveled, and they're also promoting Namibia and creating value for Namibia. So I think maybe that's not the conversation. The conversation is more about how can members and non-members make input to a program or a document that we are supposed to own. Because otherwise we're going to be handcuffed, not knowing the details, and then tomorrow we are asking ourselves, why did we say yes to this?
But we also do have projects, right, that have completely tainted the producers and the filmmakers in the country, where government has given money to productions and they could not deliver, and they had to go back to government and ask for more productions, and where we never saw the returns of some of these productions that had large funding from government. So currently we're in a position as well where we're trying to be safe, play it safe as well at the same time. So everything is risky.
Sorry. Can I say something?
Oh, yes.
When it comes to distribution, I don't think it's fair for you to say you should have distribution if you're going to apply for something, because that's not how distribution works for us. We're a very small market. It's only in South Africa where you can get that guaranteed distribution. If you're not South African, you have to go through the film festivals no matter what. And if we are going to grow the film industry, a lot of good investment would come from outside the country. And for us to do that, we have to be able to get our films onto the international circuit. We need to be able to go to festivals. So when you say 3 years, the project belongs to government as well, it means that we don't have any incentive to take it out. We don't have any incentive to try and go out there and create something that's plausible. We can't do any ambitious projects as well.
But you must understand the objectives, right? You've got the NFC. NFC is there to fund. I think if we're talking about funding and NFC, I think then we can really get into the feature film and the distribution agreements and whatnot. But if you've got a government that says that right now, we want to create a model that's sustainable, that allows the local people consistent work or consistent income, and also helps with skills development, then that becomes an ultimately different conversation, right? Because now we're speaking to sustainability. And generally, sometimes for you to sell, I mean, we're lots of producers in this room, where a film can take up to 3 or 4 years to find a home, to find a distributor, to find a platform that's going to take or buy that content.
No, all of
But
that
in
we
that,
understand.
but in that 4 years, that money will not be coming back to you. So in that 4 years, you will still not be seeing bread on your table regardless. Do you know what I mean? So whereas where you've got a national SOPI, sorry, I'm about to finalize my point. We've got a national SOPI, that is a salary that you're receiving every month. Because currently that's the problem. We've got an issue whereby we only get jobs once every other year. And we're trying to move away from that. We're trying to see, even at a minimum rate, how can we create a bit more sustainability up until such a point where we can afford and where we can motivate larger budgets from the government. And once we have professionalized the industry.
No, we understand all of that. I'll bring it just now. We understand all of that. My point is, okay, we've made these 52 episodes, or these 222 episodes. How are we going to get that money back just by keeping it in-house locally? Is the whole point not to export it so that we can make more money and to bring...
Yeah, okay. All right, just a quick one here. So if we had gone through the actual program, or even in this adjusted model, those components are still there, that there will be, for instance, an SVOD platform for distribution. NBC, we are hoping to get on board as a partner for the initial uptake. After that, obviously, there's still other markets to pursue, especially starting with local markets. The overriding factor then with the program is sustainability, in that it needs to make some sort of money back. It cannot just be a government grant every year. It should be a perpetual program that can actually feed and fund itself. So distribution, marketing, all those things, that's foundational to this program. Mr. Sam.
Thanks, Byron. So because you're talking about sustainability, I don't think anything that is benchmarked on government money is sustainable. Just because, you read the newspaper today, they don't have liquidity. So they might promise you and the money might never come. Right? Last year we were promised in the last financial year we get 50 million, it didn't come. So my point is, and I don't maybe want to take us back, but I think a little bit forward. Is the national content creation plan the plan of what government will do or what the sector will do?
Okay, lovely.
Right? Because I think if you expand it to what the sector will do, and I think that's FAN's role. FAN's role is not to necessarily push only what government will do. FAN's role is to put, like, the shared responsibility. What will civil society do? What will the private sector do? What will government do? And how does all of those contributions add up? So for me, this is a third in terms of operationalizing it. It's a third part of the operation, which is public sector investment into the sector. I think there's private sector investment. There's other things that are going on that are being made with or without this plan, but that should be captured because that is actual value that is being contributed to the plan. And I think what the NCCP should be able to do at the end of the day is to say the sector contributes this much, not government's money came and had this impact, because I think that limits the impact of the sector. So my one contribution would be, I think you have to open up the expansion. When you're looking at your objectives, those speak to sectorial things, not to government things. Right, so your 6 objectives are very high level, and I think it requires the entire sector, and I think it'll open up room for what they are saying, to say, okay, for the next 12 months, who's going to have an output? Who's going to have a deliverable? And that doesn't necessarily have to be government money. And so the feature film thing could practically come in from a co-production perspective or from a co-financing perspective, to say who's got a feature film right now that's got a funding gap? That is already, maybe they need help for post-production. They don't need help from pre-production or production. They've shot it, but they're struggling in post-production, right? And then they can be like funding allocated towards that. But I think my limitation now is the fact that this is only government money, where the truth is people are doing other things in the sector with their own money, or with private sector money, or with venture capital. And I think that the Namibian creative content plan must speak to the entire sector and not just towards public investment.
Yeah. 100% agree, 150% agree. The thing about what we need to harness is that a lot of what we need to speak to has to kind of like measure to data. The reason why we have this thematics that comes out of a cabinet resolution in 2021, where film is recognized as an economic contributor, but doesn't show up here in the NCC plan, is an opportunity for us to address it. Number two, film anywhere in the world, okay, is a big GDP driver for a reason. It's labor intensive. The revenue tail is 10 years. You can make money back in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. In most cases, when you're dealing with, let's say, public funding or investor funding, it means that you have money to produce, to employ. When you are talking about a film industry and you don't have film or documentaries as one of the products, I'm not sure then what we are creating. I'll give you another example. The biggest demographic right now is children's television. We're not able to capture that because we have not included it in the NCCP plan. But if we can look at, okay, if government is giving 17.5 million, another maybe corporate is willing to spend another million, et cetera, then we can deduce from it, maybe this will be the best way for us to develop this thing. So what I'm asking you guys to consider is, we understand, and there's a lot of work that has gone into this plan, and we appreciate that, okay? But let's make this a sectoral thing because we have to own it, and we definitely have something to contribute to the GDP.
Okay, we have a hand over there. And after that, Florian.
Yeah, afternoon, guys. Apologies, I'm late. Panache Daringo. So I had the pleasure of being part of the team as well that helped, work on the initial program, and I thought maybe I'd share some of my at least understanding, and maybe it'll help deepen the conversation. So I think there's two elements. I think NFC runs various programs. I mean, there's a call right now where there's funds, right? And I believe those funds won't stop. I think those still carry on, and stuff like co-productions could still happen for that, right? So that's one thing. So NCCP should not be the last stop, right? It's among many other programs that would be rolled out. At the core of it, government's got one big objective, right? Government wants to create jobs, and it's a big KPI. They want to create youth jobs, and they want to sort of augment the creative industry. Coming out of the position paper, a lot of the big items that came out, you will see them very quickly. We don't have access to markets. Most filmmakers are sitting with their films on their hard drives, right? They don't travel. Today, if you want to watch a Namibian movie, where do you watch it? You go to YouTube, and that's probably all, right? There's nowhere else you can really watch it. So there's need for some sort of marketing mechanisms that allows a home for local films to be absorbed. And NCCP starts looking at those elements. So creating a small SVOD platform, maybe sort of dubbing it into multiple languages. That's the type of thing that allows local productions to be consumed, because you must start somewhere. We all want to make these big movies that travel and bring all this money, and that's great, right? But I think the purpose of NCCP specifically is really to try and augment and make sure that work carries on. So creating jobs, which is a big KPI, keeping the industry busy, and then obviously creating homes and addressing all these different gaps. So I hear and I get the idea of consolidating various revenues. Where it starts getting tricky is how do you ensure the sustainability element, right? So next year, government doesn't provide any money for any program like an NCCP. How do you ensure that you're still shooting that soapy, right? Whereas if you have a mechanism where you say, look, shoot your production the same way Netflix commissions productions, they keep the rights. They pay you, you get your gig, they keep those rights, they exploit them forever. In this case, the view is shoot your production for 3 years. Let's get revenue in, not for you, but for the program, so that the next person can benefit from it. After the 3 years, there's a production. It's probably worth less, but you can still exploit it in various markets if it's been dubbed, right? So the elements around retaining your rights is then addressed, because currently it's an issue. People lose their rights. So then the rights element is sorted out. But if you have a co-production that happens, so say you do the national soap and you go get another 10 million of your own, how do you then deal with that revenue share from a resuscitating the funds perspective, so that the next sort of round of it can actually happen if government doesn't provide sort of input? So maybe that's one thing to consider. I don't have the answer. I'm just sort of playing devil's advocate to some of the comments. I agree it's a sectoral sort of program, right? So it focuses specifically on key items. And I don't think there's any restrictions on whether or not those short films can't be turned into an actual film, into an actual feature film. I mean, the word short, really talks to a formatting element, but I don't think it's limited from that perspective. I think there was a comment around TV kids shows. I don't think there's any limitation as well around what those series can be. The criteria isn't out yet. And I think those are some of the limitations that we place in our heads around what can you do with a program like this and what can't you do. So the way I see it, I think it's a stab at something. Is it perfect? Probably not. Is it a step in the right direction? Absolutely. A year ago, we didn't have $17 million, right? We didn't have anything except the normal fund. We still don't have it, but there's a commitment that the money's been budgeted, it's in the national plan, and it's on the way, right? We're sitting here because there's something that's happened. And I'm saying that that's something that we need to celebrate. What we should now do is to say, how do we do that in a manner that allows us to go back to government and say, guys, we've delivered something, here's something, give us some more. And if they say no, we're able to say, okay, look, listen, with what we've done, at least we can see another day, because what we've produced allows us to roll over into the next, another phase. Is it 100% reimbursable? Probably not. Can you make back 17 million? Probably not. But you might make back 8 million. And if you can at least show that, look, we've done this program, we've exploited these rights, 1 or 2 of the series have traveled. If the soapy does well and it's in the vernaculars and it moves into South Africa and you start exploiting it, it's fully paid. And now you have another 8 or 6 million or whatever it is that's available to shoot another season next year. That starts showing some real traction. And if we can show some of those numbers that government is looking for, I think it's great. And if we can achieve, in conclusion, government objectives and industry objectives, that's the beginning of sustainability. It's one thing saying this is all that government wants. We have to be able to say what comes out from the industry perspective. If we can create jobs, if we can trade, if we can move, that starts moving us forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Panache. Florian? Yeah, it's dark now, man. But did you see the stream? Guys, go look at the stream. You see how dark this room is. I don't know if 0.00 what lens that is. It's crazy. Okay, but yes, just before you go, Florian, I think there's a real opportunity for us now to delve into the plan. I think the initial concerns of the details and those things, we did overcome it just now after that call with Florence, and I'd like us to be a bit more progressive rather than regressive and say what objectives should have been, etc., etc. So if you don't mind, after Florian, if we can have a look at the plan.
Yes, I have one comment and then one piece of input in terms of what I think what we should look at. The comment is first that of course it is about timelines, as Tim spoke about as well, and of course putting the money squarely into grassroots projects doesn't necessarily mitigate the risk that we were talking about earlier, because we did talk about risk of a feature film not selling or not selling as much as the budget that was put into the film. But of course with these many, especially with this high output on minutes on 4 series and a national soapy, putting this into grassroots projects also has a large risk attached of actually not being completed by the time or the money running out way earlier. So that's just a little comment. The input that I make is I would strongly suggest to look at the number of series that are being produced. Because by my calculation now, it's at now a little bit more than 5 million for 4 series that have 26 episodes each. That means an episode comes up to $50,000, a 26-minute episode. If you compare it to what the NFC is giving for short films, that's 30% of that. If you're looking at what MultiChoice is paying, that's 20% of the per minute price that Ombura is paying now. And we were talking about crew rates, actors rates. And of course, if we're kind of like, it's almost a race to the bottom, because if you do a 26-minute episode of a TV show for $50,000, you will not be able to pay your crew properly. You will not be able to pay your cast properly. So I would suggest in terms of, especially in terms of the limited series, really looking, do we need 4 of those? Do we even have the crew to sustain 4 different series? Maybe 2 with double the price. Already we can pay the crew a little bit more, we can pay the cast a little bit more. We have a chance that the quality is actually that we actually have a quality coming out of this, because in the end, again, if we are working for 50,000 for 1 episode, we will have to underpay our cast, our crew, and we will not be able to professionalize our industry.
Okay, Tom?
Yeah, sorry, thanks Florian for this. I mean, I thought it's a limited series, so in my mind it was like 4 series of 6 episodes each. Yeah. Now, I mean, that's no longer a limited series. That's number one. Number two is I think you should definitely work rather with the broadcast half hour. So 26 minutes is not a thing. It's 24 minutes. Okay.
Okay, so there you have the 26 episodes of approximately 26 minutes in the third column. Commission 4 distinct limit. Okay, let's just run through the thing quick fast.
Yeah, so I mean, limited series definitely.
Yeah, okay, so
don't make them 26 episodes, and
okay,
but
lovely.
Don't overpromise now to government. Already take it down now. Say like, okay, a limited series, the way we define it and the way Wikipedia defines it, actually means between 6 to 10 episodes. That's how it's defined. Okay.
Yes,
that's
absolutely
what a limited series is.
Funny enough, that's actually how I understood that part as well.
So you understood it the same way I did?
I only see 26.
Because, so just define it in that document that there's not different expectations.
Okay.
Because otherwise we run into trouble, right?
Okay, lovely. I like the contributions coming thus far, but and I see you guys immediately jumped into the work that is at hand. I would like to hand over back to Shuna quickly. Let's run through the document, all of us. Just basically talk through it. Yeah. We can have a look at that, 26 minutes this, and so much for that. I think there's a few other aspects in that I need to highlight for us as we go into working this document and changing stuff. Because there's another underlying challenge to it. Let me see. And I don't see it clearly expressed in this, because what you're seeing there now is obviously a watered down version of what's being discussed. There's a lot of other information in there. For instance, what's the uptake amount? What's the first buyer willing to pay? And that actually becomes a bit difficult at this particular rate. Okay, I see some of those numbers popping up there now. Is this from the original program? Yeah. Oh, okay, lovely. But you see, it's already expressed there. So that's the initial intention there. But if you can just go back to the updated one and get back into the bone. Okay, that one. And okay, so 3 components. There's actually a 4th component in the equipment aspect, which is also part of the plan. So in terms of those components that you guys are seeing there, 6.125 million is going towards the national SOPI. The idea is to produce 104 episodes of 26 minutes each, which is technically speaking a half a year, 6 months. And I do believe it's for 4 days during the week, a continuous production process. As you can see, component number 2, 5.25 million, 5.25 million to commission 4 distinct limited television series across various genres. It could be children's, yeah, it could be children's, drama, etc. We can look at the amount of episodes there. The way it's written now, it's 26 episodes, approximately 26 minutes each. Yeah, that's the part that I want us to look at. So for the national SOPI, the targeted job creation numbers is 96.3. Let's just round it down to the nearest third, which is 96. Or for the limited television series, across those 4 productions, we're looking at creating at least 83 jobs out of that. The regional short film productions, assuming that these will be mostly grassroots type of productions, smaller crews, much lighter budget investment or initial investment into these. So we're looking at creating 33 jobs through that. The program currently, as it stands, promises about 112 jobs. So when we start cutting and augmenting here, we need to have a look at those things. Okay, I see there's 2 hands there at the back already, if we can have the mic. There's also Mr. Sam. So we have Tim, Errol, and then Patrick, please.
Okay. Is it okay? My question here is the regionals. Is it meant to be incubation? First time, I mean, if we are talking about job creation, we are a national development plan. And we have, so I just want to understand what, or how do you want to see that as being sustainable to our sector? Because right now, that's, for me, if I look at this needs to be about job creation, not newcomer filmmakers to come into this. So you are spending 2.6 million on newcomer filmmakers. I just want to understand what's the reason behind it, to have 14 regions and then making 14 short films for that 2.6 million, whereas that money can be maybe cut short and used otherwise. That's my suggestion.
Okay. Yeah.
Look, I'm looking at this. Is this meant to be an incubation program or what? You are talking about...
Can I quickly jump in there, because I think that's one of the pervasive misperceptions around the program. Yeah. Is that, yes, it's a grassroots program. It doesn't mean first-time filmmakers per se. So as far as I understand the program, whatever is demarcated in any of those components, anybody is open and free to apply for that. The only caveat to that is all the people that are involved in drawing up the program and other things, like the people sitting around the table, the Panashas, Shunas, myself, 1, 2, 3 other board members as well, we cannot participate in the program. There's the only limitation there is. So no, it is not first-time filmmakers. It's the best film for that budget. Yes. I think there's also another misperception in terms of this, that if you're going to produce this and if you get the money from government to produce this, you are not precluded from getting additional funding.
No. What throws me off is when you say regional films. What is the criteria?
It must come from the region.
Exactly.
It must be originated from the story, the filmmaker, and most of the production will need to take place there.
So now that's my question. 14 regions, do we have 14 experienced directors who can come on board and direct for those 14 regions? Looking at our industry right now at this moment.
Well noted.
So you are looking at 2.6 million, 14 films, 14 directors, 14 DOPs that have to work in these regions. So I'm just looking at knowing our industry. And then, yeah. So that's my question. So that's why I'm asking, is it the incubation? Are you going to train the directors or is it existing directors?
Okay. Another part which is not very expressed in what you guys are seeing in front of you. So, for instance, when we talk about the job creation numbers, there is, as part of the program, a clause for a percentage of your crew to be trainees. Actually, a larger than normal percentage that you would have. I'm not sure I speak under correction, if somebody can just give me an indication of that percentage, but I think it was close to the 30 to 40% margin, depending on which one of those components you had there. So there's a very strong mentorship aspect to it. So the reason we're including that is to help offset costs, because we're looking to pay some of those trainees, mentees, through other means, through basically government, existing government.
It's a training program.
It's basically a training. No, the whole thing is a training program. The whole NCCP is the grassroots program that we proposed. There is another program that speaks to international distribution, which is the triple P model. We presented both. You understand? So also when we're looking at this thing, we shouldn't misunderstand its purpose.
It's 180,000 per region, right? So if we're saying that there's somebody in Katima wanting to do a film and is an upcoming producer at grassroots level, they're only getting 187, because if you divide that 2 million by 14, I mean, we can't shoot a movie with 200,000. Can't even do post-production with 200,000. So whether or not we do have that, to be honest, that's always been also a concern, to say that or to ask that if the industry is ready for these types of fundings. Do we have the capacity? The capacity issue has always been in question, for sure. So you're well within your rights to have that same concern as well. But at the same time, there is also a decentralization issue that's always been prominent. Windhoek producers always get the high budgets. And that's why they also end up being more experienced, because the other people in the other regions never get the opportunity to even upskill themselves because they don't have the funding for it. So it's always difficult, but yeah.
Okay, maybe just briefly on the short film, maybe have you considered removing Khomas region from it, so to really drive the decentralization?
I absolutely love that suggestion.
Okay.
But it might be hard on the Khomas people, though. It might be hard on the Khomas people.
Just, okay, then my other point was just about the jobs. So we very seldom have permanent jobs in the film industry, except if we run our own company, and even then. I just do think with component 3 you have underestimated how many people will actually work on these films. Because I mean, if it's 13 short films or 14, you're right now saying 33 jobs are created. That means 2.5 people per film. I'm pretty sure there's more people gonna work on any of those short films. So even if you make it like minimum 5 people, then you're already sitting with 70 jobs from those short films instead of 33. Okay, and it's just about the definition of what a job is in the film industry, right?
Tim has said everything that I wanted to say, but in terms of job creation, as a producer, I go back to, I think we need to be careful when we use terms like limited TV series, because it has a specific meaning. Okay? A limited TV series has a specific meaning, and how we attribute also jobs. You can imagine how many jobs a feature film produces. Okay? I would put to you that even with component number 2, where you're having 4 drama series, we can achieve those numbers with two feature films. Just telling you out of experience. And at the beginning of the Film Commission, when we have commissioned almost 4 feature films, we know the benefit that we have gotten from commissioning feature films in Namibia. Because it wasn't about expecting your film to be at the Oscars. It was about investing in jobs so that people can work, so that after the films, that they are their own SME, that they can work on facilitation and other international jobs that are coming in. Otherwise, we're going to go another 35 years, and we're only going to have one unit manager who's stationed in Walvis Bay. And when we have a production and he's sick, we have to import those skills from South Africa. Okay, so I just want to make sure that we are on the same page. And my input is, and going back to the component number 2, I think maybe we should consider having 2 limited television series productions, and then having 2 feature films. One can be a drama, the other one can be a documentary.
Okay, suggestions absolutely well noted. Okay, please repeat. Can I quickly?
Don't let your pee distract your dream.
Okay, but now, Obi actually has to come back and answer something here. Are you really suggesting we fit in, instead of 4 limited TV series, we turn 2 of them into features? Then the numbers doesn't make so much sense. Then it's what? How much per feature that you're actually looking at? 1.3 per feature. Is that what Obi is suggesting? Oh, okay. Then there you have it.
Yeah.
Sorry, if just to complete that suggestion, if we said, like, can we, instead of the 4 series, kind of like invest half of that money into 2 features, which would be one fiction, 1 documentary, then of course you would be left with half the amount with the 2.6, where then I would strongly suggest to rather, like, instead of 2 series, then do 1 again, because the minute numbers are so low on this, and it's just, we do have to be able to pay people as well on these.
Okay, lovely, well noted, Mr. Sam.
Thank you. I'm going to jump on Florian's point. I think, for me, it is, Byron.
Thank you, sir.
The issue for me is, are we trying to, for instance, if you look at sports is good because we're all familiarized with it. There's 2 branches to sports. There's a thing called sports for all, right? Which is, how do we create community sports, because that's important for talent identification. And then there is Olympic sports, elite sports, right? And there's a connection between the 2 here. And I want to use that analogy kind of to explain here part of, I think, what Florian's point is. Florian's point, the way I understand it, is when you guys are speaking about jobs and quality productions, what is the cost that is realistic per minute that can substantiate those numbers, so that it doesn't seem like the numbers and the correlation to the number of productions are some or what? My thumb, the angles, you must have been in UK, it's very fast. Thumb sucked. Because I think that might seem like the problem. So if we, for instance, say, okay, in order to make Obed's suggestion, 1 fiction, non-fiction, whatever, non-fiction documentary, the good, right now, you've made a film, what is the estimated average cost per minute for a feature, for a soapy? And then...
Okay, hold up.
Yes, but that's what I'm asking. So my question to what Florian's question is, when you guys even reduced it to 7.5 and you said to 4 series, was it based on realistic benchmarked figures that can then also produce the quality and uphold the standards that you are setting here in terms of pay, is the question that's being asked.
Okay, lovely. Here's a short answer, and it is well illustrated in that graph that you guys see before you. This is a conversation that happened which year, guys? Year before last. Yeah? So we had this conversation last year or somewhere about there. So, as you can see here, we had 2 programs. I keep repeating this. So we must be very careful at looking at what we are trying to achieve through this program. I'm thinking here that there is a basic misunderstanding as to the objectives of the program. This program, that time we used to call it regional, now it's just national. Ne? So this program has got these as its basic objectives. The other program, the first one that we proposed, has got basically market access as one of its biggest objectives. And this is where it would then become relevant to produce at standard industry rate. Whereas for a program which is basically, as you're calling it now, sports for all. This is the Sports for All program in which you want to apply the Olympic sports frameworks. It doesn't make sense.
That's what we're asking. So what were the benchmark figures? Or was it just to say, here's a lump sum of money? Or did you guys put a modality to that? Was there a cost model to say, currently, we have 26 minutes per unit that we expect as an output, right? That 26 minutes, the 1 minute will cost us $10,000. That means for this series, 1 episode will cost us 260. That means if we want 5, that means we only have 1 million per thing. So we'll only have, like what Tim's saying, limited, we'll only have 5 to, the costing model needs to be from the backwards up rather than impose a total amount onto the people.
Okay, the short answer is
done?
yes.
Okay.
The short answer is yes.
Okay, so now that my point is,
So-
wait, that's not my point. I'm trying to clarify Florian's point so that we can understand if that was done and if it was.
Yeah, the short answer is yes.
Yes, that's why I was like advocating for, let's please look at the numbers, not about like restructuring, but of course now the amount of the budget that you got was of course way less, but I think it's like we do have to look at the per minute price of these. That's why I was like, even if we /2 series, right now the per minute price of what's suggested, again, is 20% of what the multi-choice films are. And the multi-choice films are not necessarily high-budget films. So even if we say instead of the 2 series, we put them into 1 or 4 into 2, this still is only 40% of the money, the per minute price that multi-choice is giving. So again, in terms of just being able to pay proper rates, we do have to look at what's the output in terms of minutes, not in terms of what be it a grassroots or not, but we do have to have certain minimums that we have to adhere to.
Okay.
Now, I want to connect my question to that. So to help that dilemma, I think, is the assumption here that all of this output is going to be new work that is at a pre-production stage? Or can we say, oh, I'm doing a documentary already and I just need funding for post-production. It'll be done in the next 12 months. Can that funding assist something like that? So my question is it only existing? Is it only new work that's going to be covered, or is it existing work that can also be covered?
Okay, so the short answer, once again, yes, it's only new work that will be covered in particular, because the purpose of this program was not gap funding. I think that's...
But that's what I'm saying. So in terms of the timeline that we're saying, that might be an issue. So if we say we only have 12 months, it might be as a suggestion. Hold on, it's my suggestion then. Now that I know the answer, my suggestion is to say, in order to reach these numbers, it might be important because of the time frame that this money must be spent by the end of March, and we're here, and we don't want to be left with that. Maybe we want to do, or we want to finance some of the post-production stuff to get them to have an output, would be my suggestion. My last one is around the films for all, the regional films. Because I've worked on national projects there, because something is national doesn't mean that all of the 14 regions must be addressed at the same time. What you can do is you can say these are the areas where there is no filmmaking, where we need to, and you can start with 4 and 5 regions, and it addresses the issue again of more resources being allocated per unit. Namibia's biggest problem is that we are good at making people start doing things, but we're not making people get into the markets. So for me, that's why I asked the sectoral question. What I was hoping this money would do in order for sustainability is to get the filmmakers closer to the market and not to become closer to depending on government forever again, right? So I think that for me philosophically as a departure point is problematic in how we think around government funding, rather than it enabling us to become closer to the market where the actual deals are being done. That for me is sustainable, because any sustainable industry must be depend on the market and not on government. So just in closing, I don't think we need to do 14 per thing. If we want to start high, let's do less, allocate more money. Because the higher you go, the more you need to break even. Namibia incubates at the bottom, but not on the top. So I don't know why we have to start with 14. I think it might say 4 or 5 over a 3-year cycle. In 3 years, we'll do all the regions. But I think we need to inculcate this, that sometimes we must give one person 10 million instead of 10 people 1 million. The 1 million is not at a threshold to cut you into industry, to get you in touch with distributors, to get you an Oscar award. It doesn't do that. Yes, it's equity or whatever, but it doesn't move the needle for the industry. Sometimes we must suck it up and say, all of that 10 million is going to that one film, because Tsotsi as that one film is going to raise the bar for the entire sector. I'm just, so as a proposition on the 14 things, I think we should reduce that and maybe bring in more components in the worst region with more training, more capacity building, and yeah, that's my final.
Wait, there was somebody on that side, please. So yes, guys, I think there's, I just fear that we're missing the opportunity here. In trying to restructure a program, or at least to restructure the objectives of this program. I think I just go back to that particular point that you made, that you get football for all. This is the filmmaking part for all. The suggestions, however, of, for instance, reducing units so that you can improve the investment amount per unit. That is absolutely a valid suggestion. But I don't think, as I initially pointed out to you when I showed you the graph, that this program is suddenly now supposed to do what RPP programs as suggested, or to do what the NFC is currently doing, or to overtake NBC's commissioning or Ombura or any of those things. This is not the program to replace this. The stated objective of this program is to develop from the bottom up. So please keep that in mind. Yes, Panasha, please.
Yeah, so just 3 comments from my side. The one is on the timelines. So I think, because we keep going back to the timelines, I think one of the comments that Ms. Flo made yesterday is that we'll try and obviously get more time beyond just, end of March. So I think the timelines issue was already addressed yesterday. The second one is just around the regions, the regional sort of shorts. I mean, I've been following the group for a while, and every often you do hear someone from every corner of the region saying that we're left out, right? So the question will always be, if you do reduce the number of regions and there is no guarantee of a second round of funding, how do you ensure inclusivity and how do you pick which ones are prioritized? So maybe that's a question for the floor. And then just to come back to I think Obed's question was around the limited series and a feature. So my question would be just around to confirm, is the suggestion to reduce then those TV series to 2, limit them to the number of episodes, and then introduce feature films, if I understand it correctly, and then those feature films are then at 1.3 million each for 2 of them, and then one TV series then only at the balance, which would be like 2.6 million. And if that is the comment, my question is just around what does that look like from a jobs perspective, and are we not then repeating sort of what we've repeated before? So thanks.
Okay, so absolutely to allow that, I think Obed will respond now. But I think thus far there's 2 constructive suggestions that has come from the floor. The one being that we should, the one that Obed will elaborate on now, reduce the amount of limited TV series to 2 and look at diverting that funding to a documentary and a feature film. There's another constructive suggestion, especially for that component, which is that 24 episodes should rather be 8 to 10 episodes, which is the more standard international benchmark for the limited TV series. Instead of 26 episodes of 26 minutes, it should be 8 to 10 episodes of 26 minutes.
How many?
6 to 10. Okay. Okay. So that's definitely also the other very constructive suggestion that came out there is that in terms of the regional short films, maybe not all the regions need to be catered for in the first round, or maybe it could be we could stagger it across the different regions. Yes, Obi, please, in your own words.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry, I didn't say it. I thought it was Obed. Yeah. I can't see that far with the glasses on.
It's okay. So I'm not really sure how I feel about excluding commas, because this is now also like, when we talk about inclusivity, right? It's like telling someone, oh, you can enter, you can enter, but you cannot. Because when these call-outs come out, they are like, if you are a Namibian filmmaker, apply. Ne? So we apply. I mean, we live in the city. Some of us are born here. Others just come from, maybe Okavango region or Musati region. So I feel like, from a producer's perspective, ne? If you have a vision, just give it a shot, right? If you would like other regions to be spotlighted or whatever, if I come from Omusati region, I'll apply. And then if they require me to be in Windhoek, I'll be here, do what I can. And then I go back to Omusati region, then I go shoot. As long as my story, because this is the capital city. So if you say exclude commas, it's like, okay, now I live in Ondangwa, but then I now need to hire a crew from Windhoek, which is also going to be a little bit disruptive when it comes to my budget, right? So it's like, if you want to do something, just do it, you know, and then you take it back home.
Okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely. There you have the comment. Please don't exclude commerce. Just
Yeah,
pass
no.
the mic to the back there.
Just on the program administration, marketing and implementation, I think you're missing a training component. Because you said this is a grassroots program, right? And training costs money. And then I think overall the program administration is excessively high. Usually it would
that
be
changed, guys. Come on.
it would be 10% of your overall budget.
Yeah.
So in this
absolutely.
case, you're looking at 1.75 million. Which then you would also only release performance-based. So you give for the project management perhaps something like 1.1 and then...
excuse me, man, but I... Okay,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt them.
No problem.
But I've just got a problem here in terms of some of the numbers that we're seeing on this document. Remember, it's a compilation thing that we got from Airflow, just like as we were having the conversation about what we can actually divulge. But as I'm sitting here with an Excel sheet in front of me, and this is even the initial one that was sent to me, the admin and distribution component was, I think, pegged at 892. Whereas I think what happened with that one
low.
there is that there's another addition to the program, which is actually covering or responsible for increasing that thing so much, in that there was certain...
Oh, did they flip it maybe? You say
Yeah, there was certain-
892
Yeah,
because
they-
equipment access is at that.
Yeah.
So program administration, this is then basically just already employed people from government running it. There's no outside project managers, whatever.
No, I think that's actually part of the reason why the number changed from the latest that I understood, at least. Is that they wanted to have some sort of employment component to it, so project management, etc.
So I recommend 10%.
Yeah, from industry. And I think that number was then actually divided in half. If you added up the two numbers and you split it into half, that's actually what it would have been. Do I remember correctly, Panache? Yeah, so it's slightly erroneous there. So I think it's 1.8 either way. It's 1.8 for each one of those components. I'm just speaking out of vague memory.
Okay, yeah. No, as long as it's 10%, it's fine.
Yeah, okay, no, absolutely. I just wanted to clarify that, but please do note that part there.
Yeah, so I mean, like the dream is to have, you know...
I just wanted to get to the question around the training aspect of it. Now, once again, I'll leave it to a smarter person than me to explain that, Panache. Because in the program, what we do have now is you are required to have a certain training component or a certain part of the allocated budget needs to go to training. So out of the 5 that you get for the SOPI, for instance, there is a minimum required amount there. But please, as I'm saying, that somebody with more words than me can say it now. Shorter.
Yeah, I thought I'd sit right next to Tim so he can hear me properly. Yeah, so that is or at least that was the idea, that within each of those components, there's a training component and a portion of that budget. So what you see is obviously the total budget, and then it's opened up. There's a lot more line items underneath, but a portion of that budget is then dedicated to some training aspects, whether it's a mentor that maybe comes from Windhoek that goes to Katima to sit down and actually spend time with whatever grassroots teams there are to make sure that the script is developed properly, that post-production, all the way right through. The final splits and the final numbers obviously haven't been finalized, but the idea is that within that budget, there is a component that covers a mentorship aspect.
So basically mentorship is locked in there. I think the conversation did come up in the committee's meetings at some stage, and I'm really coloring outside the lines now. I'm not following the quorum and stuff like that. But I think one of the initial visions for this program was to have a set of experienced producers. You know, maybe you have some off time now. You don't have a big budget production coming up. So you could be the DOP on any one of those productions. What would then happen is that these trainees would be tied to you, and obviously there'll be a transfer of skills. Especially something, and I keep on saying this, especially something like the SOPI should have a regular turnover. You can't expect to be on that SOPI 10 years later, as Byron Joseph that's been in the industry for 20 years or 30 years. It should have that developmental aspect and the mentorship transfer of skills aspect to it. That's why I keep on saying the older producers, the experienced producers, I think is actually essential to the success of this program. So in the back of my head, I'm hoping that if you look at the 2.6 million or 1 point whatever million budget, you would go like, okay, let me give it a shot. Yeah, maybe we can do something nice and train some people along the way, rather than thinking this is the money that'll take me to the Oscars.
So I just wanted to further note and maybe also clarify what, and also add on to what Panasha was saying. So the idea is, right, so if we have like 2 limited TV series, we leave that alone. 1 extra feature, replacing the 1 limited television series. And the other one, if we're having a documentary, then we split it into 2 documentaries. Sorry? Yeah. And sorry, this is very important. Standardization and professionalization, right? We wanna create something that is also of global standard. You know, they can also be submitted to the Oscars. And that could also be a promotion item for the country to say, you know, we are on our way.
Not disputed the Obi. It's just that I keep on emphasizing that we shouldn't weigh down this program with that responsibility per se. Not that the potential and the objective shouldn't be there to produce something that is of good enough quality to even get there. But even if you look at these numbers, they are spread very thin. So I feel it's kind of unfair. But if we can have consistent work over a protracted period, something that we can justify as some sort of employment, I think that'll work better as a key objective, as opposed to breaking into international market. But those are just my thoughts. And I must also then commend this process, because as you can see there on the side, these things are being noted, these concerns are being noted, and I'm pretty sure the conversations will continue at committee level, or your suggestions will go further there. I just want to give an indication, where's the microphone right now? Okay, but I think you checked it before I saw your hand. That gentleman over there's hand was up first, then we can have Errol and then Panache.
Hi everybody, been online. I think everyone's been having a good conversation so far. But I did want to drop in just to share just to reiterate like one point that I'm hearing go round and round, which is, you know, we're talking, is it 2, is it 4, all of this. And it feels like it's this thumb sucking, right? What I feel like should be happening is agreeing upon a permanent rate that is acceptable to make this thing, that meets the rest of the requirements. Because people are also saying, you know, we want experienced producers to be on board. An experienced producer won't join a project that just doesn't have enough money. And then you'll be the blind leading the blind, and then it might even, you know, it might just not even work. So I think we need to decide what is the permanent rate, and then that will determine how many projects can actually get made. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Very relevant. Errol, please.
I moved on a bit, yeah? So my question is just in terms of the equipment I see, I don't know whether that's the right figure. I just wanted to understand, what type of equipment? Are we looking at lights and grips? Are we thinking about cameras? I understood yesterday it might be like a company that would pitch or to be funded to buy equipment. How will that equipment be facilitated throughout the year? 12 months? How will the program or the scheduling of productions take place, and who would benefit? So I'm looking at what are the key equipment that we want to see for the industry? Yeah, so I just want to understand that because, yeah, later on then I can give my suggestion.
I'm going to shoot on that quickly. Okay, but I think, as I said, those numbers are slightly erroneous. They've been highlighted as such. It should be about 1.8 in both component 4 and component 5. Because we added up those two numbers and then divided them in half to make room for certain employment requirements, project manager, etc. Also, in terms of the model that will be applied for the equipment, it's not set in stone yet, and this discussion can definitely contribute to that. But the basic objective of supplying some sort of equipment support to these productions, already understanding and knowing that the budgets are very low. So the good idea would be to either empower existing companies or a conglomerate or whoever has the best pitch, pitch, tender, proposition to do equipment funding for the project. They would then get the funding, number one, to buy additional equipment, I would assume. You cannot buy all the equipment we need with that small budget. To buy additional equipment, and I do believe there will be, amortization of the equipment over a 3-year period. But during that particular period, you need to give the equipment or make it available to the industry at affordable rate for the program. Does it help? I think it's a follow-up question on what you wanted to say, yeah? If I may, but you can start so long, Panashe, so...
Okay. So I think my question was, I'll just maybe make a comment because I know it's in the development process. It's come up a few times. I know there were comments from NBC, for instance, that have now recently commissioned projects, right? And you know, we keep saying our budgets are thin, our budgets are thin. NBC's budgets are even thinner, right? So I think it's something that we must keep in the back of our minds because they've raised it as well to say, you know, we're all supplying into the same market. It's all Namibia, and NBC must still go and buy this at 3 or 4 times the price that they're commissioning work at. So that's just something to think about in the back of our minds. I think for everyone in the room, I think my big question is around what our key objective is. Is it quality or quantity? Because that does guide, you know, how you structure and what you move around, and how do you find the balance between those. More importantly, my actual real comment is around the definition of a job. So I know you ask 10 different people, they'll give you 10 different definitions of what a job is, and it's important around the program that that definition is clear. And I know a lot of the initial numbers at the time when it was still a fan program was built around a job being ideally a minimum amount of money over a minimum period of time. And what informed the initial program was working around a 6-month period for at least a minimum amount of average, I don't know, say 5,000 Namibian dollars per month, right? Then that defines your job. If that definition isn't clear, it messes the numbers up a bit, right? Because if you're employed for a week, did you get a job? Can we qualify that as a job in the program? If you're employed for 6 months, is that still the same job? So I think the definition is important, and I'd be keen to hear what some of the thoughts are around that. Thank you.
Oh no, my mind is to go back on the answer of Byron in terms of equipment. So if my understanding is that at least one company would win the contract to buy equipment and distribute or rent out at a reduced rate to these productions. Would that not create an issue in terms of scheduling and production? You have this one house that has to cater for all this production. And if I have to go rent in 2 productions, both series are running the same time. Mind you, we are having, let's say, a timeline, and we only have one camera that we both need. Will that make sense? So I'm looking at, do we really need to have equipment bought for these productions? Or do we have to look at what the industry might need? Because we don't need cameras. Right now, maybe what I'm saying is consult production houses. We don't need cameras. FX3s, there are cameras out there. I think what we need maybe is grips, in terms of grips and lighting, that we can maybe just say we buy a certain portion and we keep it in case a production house needs. It does not need to be facilitated by a designated rental house. It can belong to fan or whatever. But right now, because the reason why I'm saying is cameras get redundant within 6-4 months, new things come out. So look at what we really need and invest at. I don't really think, my suggestion would be just revisit, because we don't really need to buy equipment for all these projections, because not all of them will get them on time. That's my suggestion.
I think, Errol, just to jump on that, I think it's a very good suggestion, because I think it puts FAN into a position, particularly around the equipment, to be more relevant in the sector. If FAN is then, and then they manage the entire, and it's an income source for FAN as well. So I think that's a good opportunity. To answer Panash's question, I think it must do both. I think when you're looking at like a national, like what Orbit was suggesting, whether a film or like a high-end production, like it must speak to quality, but I think the lower projects must speak to what is the other word? Quantity. So I think we should be able, because the way I'm looking at this project is like pipelining. Sometimes I struggle with creatives now, because you want to recreate the wheel of training. People are trained like this in oil and gas, or in transport, or in other sectors. You know what I mean? Like, so how do we benchmark in terms of, that's why I was trying to use sport to say, how do we give an all-access kind of the 14 documentaries or whatever, and how do we create something for both? Because, again, Byron, where I will disagree is to say that, why are we training? Right? I was not in school to be in school forever. So even if we look at a film, yes, this film is a trainee film, but it's not to remain a training film forever. So I think the project, when you design it, must always be designed not with your starting vision in place. It must be with an outcome that is almost unachievable, right? And so we say, oh, we didn't achieve the outcome, but we came this far. So if we only stick to training, when we can maybe do 3 things, train and give jobs and increase livelihoods and increase the number of productions that come out of Namibia at once, because then Namibia becomes a destination. And if we are like Dominican Republic, produces 80 films a year. So for me, it's a pipeline. So at the bottom, to answer it, quantity is very important. So maybe the 14 films are important, and we're only doing it for training. So it's not about the film itself. It's the fact that we have now training 14 ADs, 14 whatever. That's maybe, then it makes sense, because then it's not the output that matters as much. But I think at some level, output does matter. And in that output does matter, the resources matter, because the resources are the fuel that's required to get that vehicle or that film to where it needs to. And I'm telling you, in Namibia, we underinvest. We underinvest in quality. And this needs to do both. We need to invest adequately in quality and in quantity. And I think that third component, fourth component, does the quantity part. No, I agree with this, but now we're talking about the numbers and the allocation of resources. This is the input framework, right? We're talking about now the output framework. What is it that we want to get out of this?
I just want to point out something here, whereas I get the point, Patrick. So when you're talking about the input framework there, for instance, I'm saying the framework that you were referring to is the initial part of the framework. It's not the full framework. The full framework does include components or a program that is there to address your needs in terms of quality and access to international market and benchmarking to international standards. Whereas the purpose of the program under discussion is the quantity aspect, the training aspect, the mentorship aspect, and possibly like an incubation aspect to a full rounded program. That's what I'm saying, guys.
No, I agree with that.
It's not the end all. The NCCP is not the
model works.
proposition.
I'm talking about how are we allocating either the outputs or the resources to that. So this I agree with. The model works.
And also in terms of the resources. So what we got, as you can see, is a fraction of what we proposed. In total, we actually, between those two programs, we are requesting for 150
Yes, but now
million.
I'm just talking about the relationship between the number of output and the number of allocated. This is what we've been discussing. How much money is there and how many outputs do you expect? How many minutes do you expect? How many series do you expect? We're in the detail now of saying, like, you guys, hold on, like you reduced the 26 to 6 to 10.
And
that's what I'm talking about.
That you're adding to that?
That's what I'm saying.
You're adding a quality variable to that.
That's what I'm trying to say. So to answer his question, I'm saying that we cannot think about the program just in one sense, just in terms of quantity or just in terms of quality. We have to create a pathway and a pipelining for both quantity and for quality that makes sense in terms of no, yes, that's there, Byron, but what's been challenged is the amount of resources that are allocated to actually make it happen. This is a theoretical framework. The guys who have practical experience are saying, practically we've been on the ground and this theoretical framework based on the resources allocated and the outputs that are expected doesn't make sense. So we're not arguing with the inputs, we're arguing with the number of outputs and at what they are costed at for it to actually make sense and to move the industry into a needle. So that's the detail that we're trying to say. So what to answer the question is to say there must be the feature film thing because even the NFC has a Oscar committee. There is already, you know what I mean? So I hear where Obed is coming from. They're saying that is one of the things that raises the profile of the country. I'm just saying that based on the inputs that are being grounded, there needs to be both quantity and a quality. And quality doesn't exist without feature films.
So what I'm saying is that putting that onus for the quality aspect on the grassroots part of our holistic plan and program for the industry is somewhat unfair. And I keep on pointing to that.
I think
the objective of the program.
Can I maybe help reconcile this? You know, I think it comes down to what is the definition of a job? You know, and there's been talk that definition of a job is 6 months work at $5,000, right? But we spent the whole of yesterday defining what the rates for a job in the industry are, and only the runner got $5,000. I think he actually got $6,000. So if you're getting $5,000 a month in this industry, in my mind, that's not a film industry job. That's you working for a friend for free almost, you know? So for me, that maybe is the piece of the puzzle that's missing. It's like, are we paying people industry rates, i.e. giving them an industry job in the film industry that we're trying to build? Because for me, it's still grassroots. You know, that doesn't make it not grassroots, but it just means that, you know, you actually get like a real chance. You know, just a quick anecdote. You know, I've had a young lady working for me. She's a graduate from UNAM and qualified teacher and got a teaching job. So then she left, you know, my work, whereas I was maybe paying her more, but hourly. And it was unreliable. And as a result, she just left this work that I was doing. And I think the same thing will happen with a film. If you're not paying people, if they can't go back to their parents and be like, hey, Dad, I'm getting 12,000. I know this creative work is, you know, maybe I should get something more sensible, but here's real money. I can pay my rent, I can buy food, I've got my own transport, you know, then that might give somebody a chance to actually make it. But if we're paying people $5,000, you know, trust that the next job that comes that's outside of the industry, they'll take that. So we're trying to build the industry. So for me, it's important, what do we call a job? And my thinking is what we did yesterday would be what a job is. That on the minimum bar, you're getting what we as an industry decided is an acceptable minimum rate. So for me, that should be factored into what we were talking about before with like, what can we afford with the money we've got? Based off, what does it cost to hire a DOP? What does it cost to hire a gaffer? What's the minimum crew you need? And then that will determine how many things we can make with the money. That still appreciates this and giving capacity building and training and giving younger people chances to come up, but you know, hitting those marks.
Okay, absolutely well noted then. Not to keep on going in circles, but definitely well taken in terms of that. Also, the points that Patrick is trying to highlight in terms of that, and I think the general analysis, a comment from the floor has been around that. How do we weigh up quantity versus quality? How do we justify equitable jobs? I see another comment or question coming from the floor there. If we can just get the mic over there.
Yeah,
but there's another reality that I feel that we as an industry and maybe even the floor or the August Assembly is totally overlooking. Is that, okay, yes, it's all good and well to say that a runner, the least qualified person on a production, will earn X. What are the average salaries within the country? At what rates do people actually sell their services? Not just in our industry, but what is a realistic employment? Excuse me? Okay. We're not far different from that for a grassroots program. That's the average pay, guys. Realistically, not what we would dream. But Panashe, please.
Yeah, sorry. So I'm just trying to make sure at least the understanding is clear on the design side. So from what it sounds like, if one takes the comment around, you know, a balance between quality and quantity, which I think is where the program sits, if you just look at the design in the sense that it's higher than, call it, the NBC sort of budgets, but it's lower than the multi-choice budgets, right? Which maybe finds itself in the middle there. From what it sounds like, sorry?
What's the per minute rate for multi-choice? Okay, so our per minute rate is about $2,000 per minute.
Yeah, something like that.
That's 2,000. That's what we would start at our benchmark. Excuse me? Yeah, that's per minute rate for fiction. Yeah. No, but we're talking locally for local market. What is multi-choice giving? What is NBC giving? Any of this? Sorry, guys. We're talking local market. What's realistic in the market? What is, as you're saying, the per minute rate? You're referring to a percentage, but what's the actual per minute rate? Mm. Us, what we're proposing is 2,000. Wow. Okay. I think the mic would help there because, yeah, sorry guys.
Okay. So I was trying to just get to a point to understand, because we're talking obviously this component 3, which to me sounds is coming across as a lot more of a capacity building, and maybe in that bracket, maybe you don't have industry wages, right? Because it's a lot of trainees are happening. So if one takes component 3 with the mindset that, okay, you're not paying a minimum 6,000 and maybe you are paying the 3,000 industry average now, and then you tailor those calls so that they speak to an Oscar sort of requirement, right? And then you create that pathway for that growth. And then it sounds then like the quality aspect then comes out of component then 1 and 2, where you then say, component 2, I want to try and create something that is, outside of a very long form, but I do want to satisfy features, documentaries, and limited TVs. And then component 1 then is very long format, sort of structure. I mean, is that a good summary of the sentiments?
I think the cost when it comes to quality are a lot high. And we must grow the balls to observe those costs. We cannot say we cannot produce the quality because the costs are too much. The cost of the desalination plant was $2.4 billion. If you want water for the future, you must absorb that $2.4 billion. So I agree with you to say, let's lower the per whatever minute cost at a quantity level. At level 3, maybe we can even have more than 14 films and it's more of a training component. We're not worrying so much about the final output, but we're worrying about the year or 6 month long training component. But I think that maybe it must become more mature to absorb the cost of things that just cost a lot in life. And I think for me, the more we talk now, I'm realizing that maybe this project is to raise the bar, like you're saying, for quality. And to increase access. No, I'm saying, Byron, wait, I'm saying raise the bar in the fact that you are saying you want to professionalize the standards. Here's the minimum wage. Let's use this funding to exercise that. Let's use the wages that were agreed in the one conversation into the provisions of the others, which is exactly the points that are being addressed here, so that you can say as the industry and as government, we've set the benchmark, because this is public money. Right? We're not underpaying anybody. It's not MTC or multi-choice, so we can't even benchmark ourselves on SOEs or whatever. We are setting the bar for the industry. And so for me, the final uptake is when it comes to quality, let's do less, but pay more. When it comes to quantity, let's produce more, let's have more people, more output, and we pay less for that. But I think there is a relationship to what he's saying. And for me, it's to say we cannot have quality without putting the money into quality.
Absolutely, 100%. The point is, been well made, well noted. I just have a proposition, or just a question that I'd like to pose. So what if as you rightly mentioned there, that there are different components, there are different objectives, or there are different objectives to different parts of these components. And maybe we should look at one part being quality, the other one being, for instance, quantity, as you rightfully mentioned there. Could I then maybe just put it out there? I think I've been trying to do that. To say that, but the program itself speaks to the quantity aspect of our overall objective, which speaks to both of those objectives that you are highlighting there. That this program is not the beginning and the end all of what we foresee to be invested within the industry. So hold up. The reason why I keep on highlighting this, and I keep on showing you the graph with the two programs there, yeah, the Triple P model and the NCCP model, is because when it comes to the Triple P model, what you are suggesting there, paying market-related price, creating content at such a quality that it could be distributed. That is the Triple P model that we are suggesting. Excuse me. Wait, let me finish. And this Triple P model, now, the overall thing, we didn't only end in one program, we ended in two programs, guys. And what I'm positing to the group here, that maybe because of government stated objectives for broad-based job creation, we're going for quantity first, but that does not preclude or exclude the possibility of having a Triple P model where we focus distinctly on creating quality content that can then travel. The reason why I'm saying this is because I feel that we're getting stuck at 17.5, but the allocation to CCI over the 5 years is 250 million. That's the allocation. That's what's written in NDP 6, CCI, 50 million for each of the financial years. Yeah.
Can I ask a question for clarification? Would we rather have 4 jobs that each got paid, let's say 20,000 a month, right? And they're now ingrained in the industry, they got some real experience. Or would we have, call it 20 jobs that each got 5, that then float around and don't end up in the industry? Because in my mind, there's a justification for saying that the 4 jobs is actually more real job creation than having 20 people get some money for 6 months. Do you get what I'm saying? Because in my mind, this argument, I don't think it's a matter of quantity, because I think the quality is necessary for the quantity. Like we need a minimum threshold, as in like we need to pay people 20,000 bucks a month in order to then get the skills to stay in the industry. So for me, it's like 4 jobs would make more sense and be more like of a win than 20 that just left.
Is it not a selfish approach?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to make it a up and down conversation. I just have to overly emphasize, guys, that there were 2 programs there.
I think both objectives. Florian, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to, as a last comment, say I think why we are circling around this is because we've been sitting now for the whole day of yesterday and the morning today in a standardization of the industry. So it's just a little bit concerning when then the first time there's a lot of money coming into the industry for a long time now, the first time in this decade that actually there's a lot of money flowing into the industry, and we kind of say, okay, let's disregard the standards that we just set over the last 1.5 days because we don't have the money now. So maybe in the future we can set up these standards. But we talked about it and there was a lot of input, and you saw how many people there were here yesterday, how many people were here today. So we do have to work on upkeeping these standards that we are proposing, because right now we are talking about things and saying, okay, we have a lot of money now, but this is now under this, we have to stay under the standard because we can't afford it. So we just have to see, we have to be the first ones that actually uphold those standards that we are proposing.
So now it becomes like 2 arguments, right? It's like about, okay, so is it what we want as filmmakers? We want to keep up with the standards that we've just established, right? Government, we don't care how many jobs you want to create. Us, we want to focus on our standards, and we want to make sure that our people are getting paid correctly. And sorry, I'm just really playing devil's advocate, right? Because we have to report on these funds. There is a report that you have to submit to government and stipulate this was the impact, this is how many jobs were created. Therefore, we want more money so that next year so that we can create more jobs and create more impact, right? Because these are part of the national goals. So while I hear you to say that, listen, we just set standards. I mean, before this, we didn't necessarily have standards. You know what I mean? That's also the other issue at hand. So I'm just trying to formulate a strong argument
no, it's not even
for the changes that we're about to do, and we should be able to back that up when we are going to request for more money next year.
Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry, I think Pinashe raised his hand before me, but I just want to make something clear, and I think we get lost in the weeds of things, especially if we don't realize where this is coming from. When the FEN board did the benchmark for NDP 6, the numbers that were used from the Film Commission, even though they're not complete, were based on films that were produced in Namibia and film permits that were issued. What ended up happening is that the data showed that around $100 million came into the country, X number of permits were issued, and the average payment for the crew and the cast was very high. And government said it was actually quite impressive. The first time it happened was during COVID. When everything was shut down, the only numbers at GIZ that was showing is that the creative industry was performing very well. Where I go back to, and I'm just giving context. So the argument is not government wants XYZ, because government is waiting for us to tell them that these are how many jobs we can create, and these are the industries that we can create. This is the sustainability that we can create. This is the scalability that we can create. You're not going to be able to scale or sustain if you're driving people out of the industry by paying them peanuts.
I hear you.
That is a fundamental point.
I hear you. And on that point now, based on that point, because I don't want us to now linger without concrete solutions and concrete steps and concrete inputs. So I just also want us to really finalize, get to a closing, and because now it's 10 to 5, colleagues. We've been actually debating for 2 hours almost. So how do we make this appealing, and how do we now speak to quantity and quality and the sustainability of the industry? So I would like us to get to that point without debating it further.
Okay,
So concrete solutions and inputs.
I'm holding the mic, so I'm just going to reiterate my point, and then I'll let it go.
Okay.
As a solution, work out what an acceptable rate amount per minute is, and then use that to determine how many projects get made. That's my bottom
Say that again?
So using the standards we said yesterday, using industry experience and other people's knowledge that is not my own, because I don't know how expensive these things are, determine what is an acceptable rate per minute for a project. And I'm not saying it must be 2,000 or 12,000, I'm commenting on what that should be, but I'm saying this is how we should approach it. 2, 6, 10, 12. Once we have that number, then we determine how many projects get made. That's my 2 cents.
Noted.
Mine would be, I think also when it comes to the decentralizing now, coming from like my perspective, I'm not from commerce. The only reason I'm in commerce is like for the opportunity, let me say. So there's also like a pipeline, or like, we say we want to go like now, say to Katima, for instance, and give an opportunity to someone there, but then they didn't even go through film school or have any context, but they have the passion to make a film. I think for that person, like realistically, they would first need to go to like school or training or something like that, right? And then you have also then the people who have gone through that, like a training or school, and then are sitting not having a job. So I think also adding on to his point, realistically, let's focus on what we can, using the resources, realistically, like how many projects can we use? Like say if we are saying 2 drama series for the nation, and then the qualified people get the jobs, and then when it comes to training, let's focus on then empowering. So like let's say we get trainees from each region who can then be empowered from this opportunity. I think, I don't know if I made sense, but that's what's going on in my head.
Sorry, just I want a minor qualifying note. I think the only portion that I was talking about was the 5.25, the 4 series. It's not like readjusting the whole thing, but like what do we do with that section of the budget specifically?
The 4 limited of the series. The 4 limited series, what do we do with?
The earlier comment I think was relating to that.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Wasuit is the second component. All right, Panashe?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just gonna throw a bit of a. I actually think this is a good session. I think there's a lot of progress actually coming out of it. I just want to try and gauge whether it's an inclusive conversation and if sort of that's the sentiments around the room. So from what I'm getting and at least understanding is that the view is component 1, there's not too much argument around component 1. 104 episodes, because that works out to about 58,000 Namibian dollars an episode. So I'd just be keen to get some inputs whether or not that's realistic. That's one. On component 2, it sounded like the general feeling in the room is lower down those series from 4 to 2, maybe bring in the documentaries and bring in a feature film, right? And documentaries could be maybe 2, right? And then on component 3, it sounds like that more or less stays the same, but with a real emphasis on building capacity more than anything, and maybe there we lower those salary standards a little bit to at least make sure that the core aspects around capacity building are met. So I just want to make sure that is a good summary, or if there's any big objections, because if there are, then it may be a good time to hear them. Because then, if not, then it looks like then we've moved forward.
Sorry, just one, because I think when we talked about component 2, about the limited series, it was also raising the per minute price for the limited series. So of course, if we split the 4 series into both taking the budget out of 2 for the feature and the 2 docs, that would still leave the 2 limited series with the same budget as they have now. So rather sort of like maybe even doing 1 limited series, doing 1 feature, doing 2 docs or something. So that we can actually raise the price as well, the per minute price.
All right, Florian, I just want to put that in there. Please repeat that again, sorry.
So it would be basically the budget out of the 4 limited series, doing 1 feature, 2 documentaries that are the same price as the feature, right? We're splitting the budget by 4, which is about, 1.3 million times 4. So 1.3 for the feature, 1.3 for 2 docs, and then 1.3 for 1 limited series. I think that would be a really reasonable budget that one can actually work with and also do high quality work with.
I was just going to throw a quick spanner in the works. So limited series, obviously, it's limited is like broad, right? I've seen like limited series that are, some are like 12 episodes, some are like 3 episodes. So then the question is, I would imagine that the limited series will at some point maybe grow towards being a soapy, right? So would maybe 2 limited series still not make sense, so that at least you've got options, and maybe not necessarily cutting the per minute rate, but maybe cutting the number of episodes?
Okay, but guys, give them a chance, please.
And let's vote on something.
Give peace a chance. All right.
What is the extra input?
All right. So my main thing is, I'm with everybody on bringing down the broadcast minutes. I also think the short films don't need to be 26 minutes. I don't know why we always tend to do that. They can be 10 to 15 minutes, or even 5 minutes or 4 minutes, because it all depends on the idea. And let's not lock down the minutes as much with the short films, the regional short films. That's what I was. Yeah, you'll make better films if they're shorter than 26.
Okay, my suggestion would be at component 1, right? Look, if we still want to keep, there is a way that I can maybe suggest. If we want to keep 2 limited series, we currently have component 1, we say 104. That's like, what, 8 seasons of a series, right? So if you cut down those ones to 52 episodes, you can take 1 million and put it down at the limited and still have 2 limited and still bring in a feature and a documentary. But what that will do is if you have 5 million for 52 episodes, it will still raise the cost per minute on the soapy. But then you are still going to have 52 episodes that can run for a year, but still at good quality in terms of budget.
Yeah, that's the challenge.
Is that the challenge?
So right now it's 4 days.
Byron, just in terms of jobs, I think you can also calculate the indirect jobs, all right? But then the numbers, if you're looking at, for instance, the catering, all of those, but I think then it should be distinguished between direct and indirect. Okay. Oh, these are just direct jobs. Okay, so I think in terms of just inflating numbers, it looks good when because most of the money ends up at the indirect. Right, so I think it's important that that's also then calculated in terms of what you're impacting, because the impact is not just within the industry. And then finally, I'm just going to say something controversial. I think this limited television series, given the fact that the NBC gets 330 million, I'm just going to throw a spanner in there. In the long term, there must be some kind of NCCP, NBC, especially about the limited TV series and the soapy, because where is it going to play? I'm assuming on NBC.
Yeah, so that's also another key aspect of this plan. Is uptake or offtake or whatever.
Yes,
yeah. Is where it gets sold. And our primary market or our first point in market is the NBC, and what they could basically offer us, which is much less than even $1,000 per minute. Much less. And that's the other thing that I'd like to leave with my community.
So let me just finish my point and then you can hand over.
Reality, but thank you, yeah.
But I think in terms of the way that the government is budgeted is the television budget is separate than the film budget. Now you're taking film budget and you're giving it television. To make television. There's a television, I'm just saying in terms of the streamlining, there's a television budget and a film budget. In terms of how money works, and how it's allocated, the ICT gets film money, NBC under ICT money, NBC gets television money. Right, so all I'm just saying is, again, a blind spot might be that we're using film money to produce television series for a large part, where NBC already gets $330 million for television. So I'm just putting that as a closing thing. I think this is great work, but I think if we have to look at total government money, not just the 17.5 million, then you can say as a filmmaker, oh, a lot of the output is going to be on television, and I just want to make feature films, and now a lot of that money has been used to make television films that I don't really necessarily have an interest in, where those people already get 330 million. So I think that's a conversation for the future.
Yeah, okay, guys, well noted. I think we need to round up now. The NTN wants their space back. We only had it until 5 for free. We'd like to thank them. We'd heartily like to thank them for partnering with us in terms of making this possible. For myself, I think this was very insightful, deep. There's still a lot of work to be done. But yeah, thank you very much, everyone, from my end.
Are we happy with these inputs? Can I submit these? Yeah? All right. I'm so sorry to the actors, that we could not complete our document? Okay. Like another session like this? Well, we can always create it. If you guys are going to show up and engage as much as you have for the past 2 days, yes, please, more of it. Exactly. And also, please be reminded that tomorrow we've got the AGM. So whether you're a fan member or not, please come tomorrow. And if you're interested on being on the fan board, please come tomorrow as well at 10 o'clock at the CIIA. Tomorrow we have to start on time because our venue, there are venue restrictions, so we only have 10 till 1 o'clock. On time. Please, guys, you must listen to our Germans. Our Germans are concerned. Ahead of time is on time. Please. Yeah, exactly. So we will go through the draft again and probably make the changes. And then after we make those changes, we'll send it back to you and say, are we happy with this? Can we submit this to the NFC? But we will then send the link. Yeah, so please make sure that people are on the groups and they are aware of the information. Other than that, thank you very much. Thank you to the NTN, thank you to the NFC and the fan board.
Okay.
And also, if you are, since you guys have been here with us consistently, those of you that are not fan members, please go and if you'd like to become a fan member, please go to Yalo because Maj has just announced that, yes, Maj has just announced that he's sponsoring a few memberships. So since you are already here and you're coming to the AGM tomorrow you can even do more voting. You can vote tomorrow. All you have to do is just submit your name to Yalo. That's all you have to do. You don't even have to pay. Anyway, thank you and good night.